Hello friends, welcome back to another episode of r/prorevenge, where many of you come to get your daily dose of satisfaction. There's 3 stories in this one. I hope you stay for all of them, and subscribe for future videos. This story's titled, Don't Take My Lawn Decorations. I had purchased my first home in a slightly lower class area of town, which is pretty close to an even lower class area of town. Think slightly ghetto, a mile from absolute trailer trash. I know most of my immediate neighbors since most of them are pretty loud, and I'd rather be friendly with them than have them be my enemy. Some local kid likes to go around collecting trash in his free time. A real nice kid, does it for really no reason. Whenever I see him, I usually get him a drink, lemonade or soda so he can stay hydrated since California's hot. Sometimes I give him a few dollars. I offer the kid $30 a month to mow my lawn 2 times a month. So, the kid has a gig for small but consistent income. The kid takes a lot of pride in his work. He mows the lawn, pulls weeds, moves rocks out of the driveway, and just makes my place look extra nice, even though I don't ask him to do any extra work. The guy's great. This goes on for a few years. The kid's now a senior in high school. The family's not doing so great. Dad had just lost his main source of income, and Mom had accumulated debt, which put a lot of stress on their failing marriage. And the mom didn't treat the kid too nicely. Dad was okay, but the kid keeps on walking, doing work, volunteering, and being a real happy, upbeat dude. Despite his troubles at home, the kid starts buying lawn decorations, mostly small little gnomes and some decorative rocks, and bird bath, and he decorates my yard. It looks amazing, but I knew he must have spent a lot of his own money on that. I try to reimburse him, and he denies. He won't take it. I know he needs a car, and I was about to get a newer one for myself, so I gave him mine for free. It was really the least I could do for this guy for everything he's done for me. A few weeks later, a drunk driver T-bones the kid, and he didn't survive. I was devastated, his parents were devastated, and they soon got a divorce. They were fighting on who gets what, and the father discovers that the mother has had a drug addiction that she'd been hiding, straight out of left field. She wants everything they had, and she lawyers up to fight the battle. Due to the debt the mother had accumulated on the father's bank account, he really had no money and no way to win this battle, and nobody knew where she got her money from. As sad as it is, it's not my affair, until she sent me a letter claiming that the yard decorations are rightfully hers, and that she will take them, or else. Now this is a problem. I get it, you lost your only child, you're in a lot of pain as a parent, but you were never a good parent to him. I was closer to him than you, by a long shot. So, I had a meeting with the father, and told him not to worry about the court costs because I was stepping in to fund it. I decided to cover all of its court costs. Long story short about their divorce battle, he wins and he gets to keep everything, and even gets a restraining order on her. He then files for credit card fraud and puts all the debt on her. I heard from the father that she was actually arrested for driving drunk, and was searched and had a decent stash of meth on her. She's currently awaiting trial for that, while the father is now living a relatively stress-free life. And oh yeah, I got to keep my lawn decorations. Rest in peace, Jonathan. You're missed. This story's titled, Audible Bang. I worked for a safety agency for over a decade. It was a small organization, nothing fancy, and we rarely saw danger save for the occasional old couple that would park in our empty parking lot and have sex. If you've ever had to see a wrinkly pair of bodies entwined on a high-resolution camera, you'd understand the danger that I had to face. And I digress. At any rate, when I started with the organization, it was well organized. All files were meticulously kept. The golf carts and cameras were in pristine condition, and everyone was well trained in safety. It was an excellent 5 years until the Mercy Healthcare Act hit, and all of us employees were told that we were only allowed to work 24 hours a week so that the company could avoid paying for health insurance. I stayed as I had finally decided to finish school, and it was still a decent job and decent pay, and was perfect for allowing me time to get my homework done. 2 years later, I get my associate's degree and started my bachelor's, and that's when the new boss was hired for my shift. We'll call him Billy Bob. Billy Bob was a narcissistic, misogynistic egomaniac. He hid in his office the entire shift, so I rarely had to interact with him until one day, I was going through the paperwork and found that our new hires had never undergone a training that was required by company policy. I had an oh no moment and began making phone calls to set up the training, apologized for the oversight, and organized the training with the employees, which was Billy Bob's job to begin with. When Billy Bob came back from his lunch break, my heart rate was returning to normal. I informed him, without blaming him mind you, that our new employees needed to go through training. I took him through what I'd done, he nodded at me, patted my head like I was some sort of a dog, and walked away. I thought that was it. Nope. 2 days later, I'm sitting in HR, being handed an improvement plan for insubordination. What? Apparently, I had undermined poor Billy Bob and made him look stupid. He looked me dead in the eye and said that my only job was to sit at the front desk and enter the area from the security agents on patrol. Oh, and take phone calls and answer questions. I was livid. I took a deep breath, smiled sweetly at the HR lady who knew me well, and said I would not make that mistake again. I immediately put in my 2 weeks notice. Billy Bob smiled. If only he knew. The next 2 weeks were the easiest weeks of my life. I did exactly what Billy Bob told me to do. No other paperwork was filed. All the lost and found that was turned in was sitting in a pile behind me. None of the cameras were calibrated. The annual emergency tests were never conducted. The fire alarms were not tested. The broken down golf cart was never fixed. None of the fixed tickets for maintenance were submitted, and all the while, Billy Bob was on vacation. Perfect. The day he was back to work was my last day. I decided to leave with an audible bang. You see, I was the last employee there who'd been given the training on all the systems. Every time I attempted to teach a newcomer, and we had a huge turnover because of Billy Bob, I would be told that Billy Bob would teach them later, and he never did. I had all the codes for the command center. I knew what key went into what locker. Basically, the moment I left, he would be screwed. So I made it worse. I set the fire alarm test to go off the minute I was to clock out for the day. I was bouncing with anticipation as my fingers hovered over the clock out button. As soon as the alarm started going off, I hit the button, grabbed my stuff, and headed for the door. Billy Bob comes tearing from his office, shouting at me to turn it off. I shouted back, "Sorry, I'm officially no longer your employee. Have fun," and tossed all the keys on the counter. The look on his face was priceless as I pranced out the door. I could hear the alarms in my car half a mile away. Glorious. This story's titled, Crooked Car Dealer. This happened a while back. I decided to get a new car. I found out that the new models were coming out in about 6 weeks, and I could wait that long. So I spec'd out what I wanted, cut a deal including my trade-in, and ordered a new car from the dealership. Several weeks later, I was out driving my current car, and some dummy blew a red light and T-boned me. My car wasn't drivable, so I just towed it to the dealer and left town on a 2-week work assignment. When I got back, I went to the car dealer to talk about the repairs to my car and was shocked when they said it was all fixed. I asked how they could do that without my authorization, and they told me that the repairs had been authorized by the insurance adjuster for the company of the guy that hit me. I asked to see the car, and it looked good except for one big dent that wasn't repaired. I asked why they hadn't fixed it, and they said that the dent wasn't part of the accident. I said it was, and they disagreed. The dealership demanded that I sign a liability release for the insurance company, and I refused. They said I only had 2 choices, sign the liability release and take the car as is, or pay cash for the work they'd done. I refused, and they said I couldn't have my car. I went home, got my spare key, went back to the dealer, and drove my car off the lot and went home. Just as I got home, I got a call from the dealer. I was expecting a pissed off auto body shop manager, but it was a cheerful salesman telling me that my new car had arrived. So I drove back to the dealer, gave them the title to my old car, paid the difference, and drove my new car home. A week later, the body shop manager called me and said they'd been cruising my neighborhood looking for my old car, and sooner or later they'd find it and tow it. The guy told me he'd placed a mechanic's lien on the title, and I wouldn't be able to sell the car without paying him. Meanwhile, the car is sitting in their used car lot. Eventually the car sold, and when the buyer went to title it, he discovered that the dealership that sold him the car had a lien on the title. He sued the dealership. After that, the body shop manager called me and said, "I guess you got us." He told me that the insurance company had issued them a check payable jointly to me and the dealer, and asked me to be a good guy and endorse the check and sign the liability release. I said no. He called me a jackass and said he would just sign the check and release himself. He told me that the insurance company doesn't know what my signature looks like, and then he called me a jackass again. I called the insurance company and asked to speak to the fraud department. They connected me to some lawyer, and I told him the full story. He really got interested at the part about the body shop manager, saying that he would forge my signature on the check. About a month later, an investigator came to my house and showed me a check and asked if it was my signature. I told him it wasn't, and he asked if I would make a sworn statement to that effect. I agreed. The body shop manager was fired and subsequently charged with insurance fraud and forgery. He claimed that his boss forced him to do it and had a witness that backed him up. His boss got fired. The body shop manager got 180 days in jail. Karma is sweet. Hello, I hope you enjoyed the stories in this episode. If you liked the stories, hit that like button and leave a comment. If you aren't subscribed, you'll want to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss future stories. See you guys in the next one.